ممثلة الاتحاد الروسي.
I would like to thank the distinguished representative of Estonia, and I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, we thank the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Mr. Mahamat Saleh Anadif, for his briefing on the situation in the country and on the work of the UN Stabilization Mission in Mali. We note your cautiously optimistic stance. We are pleased that the transitional authorities are taking the proper steps to restore constitutional order. A transitional charter has been adopted and the National Transitional Council has begun its work. It's important that the authorities are in dialogue with all stakeholders, including the platform and coordination movements. Their representatives have joined the government. This is an important step on the path to national reconciliation. We trust that the new authorities will do everything they can to ensure that the time frame for the transitional period, 18 months, is adhered to, after which general, parliamentary and presidential elections are supposed to be held. Stabilizing the situation in the country depends on the strict implementation by the transitional government and other political forces of the provisions of the Algiers Peace Agreement. We hope that the constructive dialogue on this will continue with signatory groups. This dialogue is already bearing fruit. A second phase of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of former combatants has been agreed upon. Security sector and state governance reforms should be continued. The interests of all of the country's peoples, and in particular those in its northern territories, must be taken into account. Mr. President, we cannot allow terrorists to capitalize on the current difficulties. Judging by the increasing frequency of their attacks, they are feeling increasingly confident. They are attacking civilians, UN peacekeepers, and other service personnel from other countries, countries that are assisting Mali in the fight against terrorism. We are concerned about the situation in the Liptako-Gourma Triangle, where fighters are struggling over the boundaries of their spheres of influence and for control over smuggling channels and supplies of drugs and weapons. There are now chronic intercommunal clashes in Mopti and Segu. Across the country, there has been an increase in the frequency of attacks and abductions, and banditry, racketeering, and robbery are flourishing. Mr. President, the humanitarian situation is of great concern. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the number of people in need of food assistance has increased substantially. Many schools remain closed, and medical facilities are facing a heavy burden. All of this requires an immediate response from humanitarian agencies. We support the efforts of the African Union and the Economic Community of West African States in the area of political mediation in Mali. We note the role of ECOWAS in particular. We call on the Malian authorities to cooperate actively with their colleagues in the region. We welcome the fact that steps taken to restore constitutional government has led to the lifting of ECOWAS restrictions against Mali. We must keep in mind that the situation in Mali is a key factor in regional security. We hope that the full participation of the Malian armed forces in operations of the G5 Sahel Joint Force will continue, and that the 2020 decision by African countries to intensify the fight against terrorism will be implemented. The African Union Commission's idea to deploy African standby forces in the Sahel region should be supported. The close cooperation and coordination between Bamako and the UN Stabilization Mission in Mali must continue. peacekeepers must continue to precisely fulfill their mandate in the north and in the center of the country. We welcome the assistance provided through MINUSMA in the construction of Mali armed force bases in Gao, Kidal, Timbuktu, and also together with the G5 Sahel Joint Force. Having said that, we reiterate that primary responsibility for protecting civilians, restoring control over the northern regions, and resolving socio-economic and other problems lies with Malians themselves. In conclusion, we would like to express our gratitude to the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Mr. Anna Evstigneeva, for his effective leadership of the mission. Thank you, Mr. President.
أشكر ممثلة الاتحاد الروسي على بيانها وأعطي الكلمة الآن إلى
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.